Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to the folks joining from different parts of the globe, and welcome to today's webinar session. My name is Noor Basha, Senior Marketing Manager at Winwire Technologies, and I'll be your moderator for today's webinar. As most of you know, we are hosting webinar series on topics like .NET, Visual Studio, AngularJS, Azure, and other topics every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Pacific time. So today's topic for the session is Visual Studio Online, where we will see how you can collaborate in the cloud using Visual Studio. So before we start, let me highlight a few housekeeping items. During the webinar, please feel free to post questions and we will try to answer as many as we can at the end. And the recording of this session will be shared to you in next 24 to 48 hours. So with this, let me take this opportunity to introduce you to today's presenter, my colleague Abhishek Chandra, who is the technical lead at Winwire Technologies, and he brings over 10 plus years of experience in the IT industry and is a Microsoft certified specialist. And with that, I would like to turn it over to Abhishek.
Thanks, Noor. Good morning and good evening to folks joining from different parts of the world. Hello everyone and welcome to webinar on Visual Studio Online. My name is Abhishek Chandra and I'm working as a technical lead with Winwire Technologies. So before we go ahead, let me brief you about the agenda. So we'll be discussing, primarily about what is Visual Studio Online. We'll be then covering some of the features of Visual Studio Online, and thereafter we'll be going through some additional features which are being offered as a part of Visual Studio Online. This will be followed by a quick demo, and if you have any question, just post it to us. We'll try to answer as many as we can towards the end of this webinar. So basically, what is Visual Studio Online, and what does it do for us? So Visual Studio Online, it helps us to plan, build, deploy, and manage applications using a some set of services which is available to the entire team. So you can think of it as as a TFS plus bunch of other additional services that are offered, which are there to complement it. So as you can see, like it is originating from Team Foundation Server, and Team Foundation Server is basically a place where you host your source control, you add your planning, you track your work, you do the test case management, running of the test cases. You have the service for feedback management. So Visual Studio Online essentially is the hosted version of all these stuff, and plus a bunch of other services that complement it. So there is a build service, there is a load testing service, there's application insight, continuous deployment is there. So as I mentioned, you can think it of as a as an online TFS plus bunch of other hosted services that are complementing it. So let's go to our next slide. So Visual Studio Online is hosted from Microsoft, so you don't have to worry about hosting and upgrading your infrastructure from time to time. This mainly eases the collaboration. When you talk about collaboration, you think that your team is distributed and you need to work with distributed team in various ways. So Visual Studio Online has capabilities that help you throughout the cycles of planning, development and test, release, and thereafter you can monitor and learn from your outputs. So in the planning phase, it helps us to plan for the release process. In the development and testing, it offers capabilities which help us with the development and the testing process. It offers flexible version control. You can use distributed or the centralized version control. It also provides cloud-based testing. It provides support for web-based test management also. In the release phase, it helps with automated build and continuous integration, provides facilities for continuous deployment, and it ultimately helps you to deploy in Azure also. In the monitor and learning, you can think like it provides application insights and provides feedback management, so that you can get the telemetric data and you can improve upon that. So at a high level, Visual Studio Team Services helps us to collaborate, and when it helps us to collaborate in the cloud, it's just not an ID. It's like provides a set of cloud-powered collaboration tools that work with your existing ID, so your team can work more effectively on the projects. It helps for tools. It provides tools for agile teams, like it provides Kanban, Scrum dashboards, so where you can track your backlog, and you can create a customizable Kanban boards. Uh, it helps to build, validate, and deploy. So we can use continuous delivery to automatically deploy applications or website, whichever passes our test cases. So we can automate that stuff. It is open and extensible. So Microsoft has made it easy, for you to integrate your custom tool or any third-party service with Visual Studio to team services using open standards like REST APIs and OAuth 2. Let's talk about what are the various options to access Visual Studio Online. So if you have a team of 5 or less, you don't have to pay anything at all for the user plans. You also get, in this scenario, 60 minutes of free cloud build per month. The second option is is through MSDN subscription. To get Visual Studio Online through MSDN subscription. The third option is to go for monthly plans. So here there are 3 choices. One is the basic plan, which I told earlier. It's like first 5 users are free, and then thereafter you have to pay like $20 per month sort of thing. Then there is a professional plan. Here you can have maximum 10 accounts, and there is an advanced plan which have features like chart authoring, agile portfolio management, etc. So these are the various options in which we can access Visual Studio Online. So let's see how to sign up for Visual Studio Team Services, and from there to go ahead. So you have to go to Visual Studio Online first of all, and you have to sign up with a Microsoft account. After that, you have to give some name, like in this case I have given Abhishek Devan. You can give any name what you like, and then choose the version control between Git and TFS. And now you have created your Team Services account. So this will create your Team Services account. Once that is done, you need to connect to your Visual Studio Team Services. So after your Team Services account is created, you can create your first team project. You can go ahead and give a name to your project, demo, or whatever you like, and select the version control you want, and you go ahead and create your project. Now you can connect and share your code either from Visual Studio or Eclipse. You can develop and share your code in Team Foundation using Visual Studio, or you can do it in Git using Visual Studio based upon the option which you have selected earlier. After that, it follows the regular steps. You need to configure your workspace, you need to map your workspace, and get the source, whatever the source code you have. And now you can go ahead and check in your source code, and you can manage your regular stuff. As earlier, it gives choice to choose between Git and TFS. So at the high level, TFS is centralized and Git is distributed. So TFS requires in TFS branching requires different workspaces, whereas branching in Git is lightweight and it is path independent. In Git, basically what happens is like each developer has a copy of the entire source repository on their dev machine. So developers can go and commit each set of changes on their dev machine, and they can perform version control operations such as history and compare without a network connection also. So here, as I told, the branches are very lightweight. Whenever you need to switch context, you can create a private local branch, and you can quickly switch from one branch to another. So later you can go ahead and do the merging, publish, or etc. Whereas in TFS, which is a centralized version control, typically here what happens, like each team member will have only one version of each file on their dev machine. So historical data over here is maintained only on the server, and branches are path-based and are created on the server itself. So now let's see how to manage user and their access. So after you have created your team services account, you need to add your team and assign them the access to your account. All this you can do at the same time. So that way you can make sure they get the correct features, whatever they need. So over here, team members may need, stakeholder access. They need a basic access or a Visual Studio subscriber access. So as I told earlier, team services account, this includes three, five basic user access. You can, however, you can add unlimited number of stakeholder and Visual Studio subscribers. You can go ahead and add a group without any extra cost. So one thing to note is interesting thing is stakeholder access. So you can give stakeholder access to those members who just need to work on the backlog. This can include work, creating work items and queries. But few things with with stakeholder license, which they will not be able to do it. Like it will not have ability to reprioritize the work. No, it will not have access to code, build, and team rooms for the test or any test hubs for that matter, and they will not have any administrative functionality. So basically, we should be giving stakeholder access to people like product owner, sort of people, not necessarily devs. So after that, so Visual Studio Team Services at the high level, provides the capabilities for other apps to integrate with its services and have access to the resources which are stored in your Team Services account. So you can go and change the access policies for your account. That is also possible. Somehow, if you suppose a scenario is like somehow you decided to limit the access of your Visual Studio Team Services account, you must go ahead and specifically set these restrictions for each of the authentication. How to do that basically is like you need to sign in to as an account owner to your Visual Studio Team Services account, and after that you have to go to the control panel. Then you need to go to the settings tab. As shown in this particular slide, you need to go to this particular settings tab and change the settings based upon the security policies. So like over here, alternate authentication credentials, you can allow or you can bar them. So one important thing, like you can link your Visual Studio Team Services account to Azure subscription also. One thing to note here is that if you need to set up the billing, if you exceed the fee amount or you need to add the users, so this kind of billing happens through Microsoft Azure account. To set up the billing and make purchases for your account, you need to link your Azure subscription to your account. So how to do that? Basically, you need to sign into your Azure portal as the Team Services account owner. After that, you need to select the Visual Studio Team Services. You can choose link to existing and select your account and Azure subscription, and after that, you're good to go. So there are few additional services which are being offered as a part of Visual Studio Team Services, like build and deployment services, build and cloud-based load testing. So let's quickly go through these. So build and deployment, basically we use this particular task-based service to create, view and monitor cross-platform builds. We use build option with the build option, that is the second option, this one. We can create build definitions with Visual Studio and run them in Visual Studio Team Services. We can configure builds to run on demand or at specific intervals. With cloud-based load testing, we can create load tests using Visual Studio Ultimate or using Visual Studio Enterprise. We can run those tests in Visual Studio Team Services. One thing to note here is that load tests over here are measured and built in virtual user minutes. So after you can control access to your Team Services account the same way you do with any other Microsoft services like Office 365 or anything else. So you need to sign in with the same username and password that you use with these services. And how does the Azure AD control does the access bit? So to get access to your team services account, users must be directory members when your account is connected to your directory. So after that, Azure global administrator can control who can join your directory and also who can get access to your team services account. So the steps involved in in this in setting up the current users would be like you need to sign in with your work account. After that, find and you need to select your directory. Once you have done that, you can add your current users to the directory and the users are added basically. So let's talk about this particular work related feature in Visual Studio Online. So if you see on the top here is a tab for home work. So this work tab gives us all those project management facilities. So here you can go ahead and create a backlog. So what you need to do, go to the work tab in Visual Studio Team Services and go and click on the backlog, and over left you can click on the backlog and select the iteration, and you can go ahead and start adding items to your backlog. Click on any backlog item and start adding details to it. Provide the detailed description, acceptance criteria. When you click on this any one of these row over here, the pop-up will open as shown below. Over here you can provide the details. So Visual Studio has support for two popular methods, basically Scrum and Kanban, where you can use these methods independently or you can use this together. Scrum will provide defines a sprint schedule, and with Kanban your team can focus on the flow of work from beginning to the end. So we'll discuss about Kanban and Scrum quickly. So your Kanban board turns what it does, like it turns your backlog into an interactive signboard, a board which you can use to visualize, track, and share progress of your project. So each backlog comes with a Kanban board, and each card on the board basically corresponds to item of work you have added to your backlog. So those of you who have worked on Trello, it pretty much resembles Trello. Now with Scrum, while your product backlog is maintaining and fulfilling the set of requirements to build your product, sprint backlog shows a filtered subset of these particular requirements. So over here, Scrum teams use sprint backlogs to target what they will for the next sprint. So typically, as being followed in any agile methodology, sprint can be of any length, but typically they last 1 to 4 weeks. And over here, team can collaborate and and work on the sprints. The other interesting feature provided by Visual Studio Online is Application Insights. So Application Insights provides basically 360-degree view of the entire application. It helps you your application being available and performing. So you can use Application Insights to to get the alerts on the performance changes or any crashes that happen. Get the metrics to diagnose performance issues. You can get the exception reports and alerts. So whatever the telemetric data you have collected from your application can be stored and analyzed in the Azure portal also, where there are various views and powerful PI charts and graphs, so which will help you diagnose your application. So yeah, now let us talk about Visual Studio Online build services. So it is a managed pool of build resources managed by basically Microsoft, and it is available for you to run continuous integration and schedule the builds in Visual Studio Online. So it is you get 60, as I told earlier, you get 60 minutes per month, free build minutes you get with Visual Studio Online. It is pre-configured in the sense that Microsoft pre-populate this build machine with a bunch of Microsoft SDKs. So anything basically you can build in Visual Studio should build on hosted build controller also. It is pretty much customizable. It has ability to run custom build activities or build process templates. You can run your own custom scripts, PowerShell scripts, or any bash script you can run as a part of your build process. And it is flexible. You can run and connect on-premises build agents to your Visual Studio Online account also. So with that, let us also see how life of a TFS admin has changed over a period of time, and how it has changed by Visual Studio Online specifically. So earlier, your TFS admin needs to do initial setup of the TFS environment. He needs to install and configure according to the requirements. Do the configuration of IS, of SQL Server, of SSRS reporting services, etc. Also, he needs to install and configure build controllers and agents. There were a lot of maintenance tasks included earlier. He needs to make sure that keep all the parts are up to date, be it Windows Server, SQL Server, TFS, anything. Continuously monitor the backups which run, and if anything fails, and try out with the disaster recovery scenarios. Manually keeps track of hard disk space, that it should not run out of space. So all these things are like TFS admin used to do it earlier. And now typically think what Visual Studio Online admin will do. He will just log in into tfs.visualstudio.com. He will VSA account. He will create any particular project in which, and he will add users to it. So a lot of things, infrastructure related things are no more required. I mean, they are being already taken care of. So Visual Studio Online admin can just concentrate on these tasks as I told. Now let's see at the high level what is the feature difference between Visual Studio Online and TFS. So work items, as you can see, few features which are there in both Visual Studio Online and TFS. Few features are there which are not part of Visual Studio Online, but they are part of TFS. For example, there are some benefits which online version of Visual Studio has over the on-premise version. It is like always up to date. All the it has a very high uptime, and online TFS is accessible from anywhere. It is also cheap compared to Visual Studio on-premise. However, if you notice, there are some features which are currently available only in on-premises TFS, which are not there in online TFS. For example, online does not have ability to customize process template. Still, there is no support for SQL Server reporting services and OLAP integration. There is no SharePoint integration, and few things which has not changed, like in this chart, which is still there in both the TFS and as well as the Visual Studio Online. So now let's have a very quick demo of the changes. So what you can do, you need to, as we mentioned, so you have to for creating a project, you have to give a your some memorable name you can give. like I have given Abhishek demo. After that, you can choose the version control. You can choose the Git or you can choose TFS. So I have already done that, and once you have done that and you create, you can go ahead and it will take you to this particular team services page. So over here, I have added like a couple of projects to my team services account. So I have let me show you. Yeah. So I have one demo project, and by default, as you go and as you create this one will be created by default, my first project. So let me go and show you about this particular project. Yeah, so you can go to the code and you can see like it will give us the history of who has done the changes and all, and so you can go and click on view history. It shows that it shows my check-in comments which I've done today. So as you can see, like it has I have configured it. I have taken the latest of it. If I make changes any on my let me go and put any comment over here, test comment, and yeah, let me go and check in this particular changes, whatever I have done. So I'll go and check in my changes, and let me go and go again to this Visual Studio Online. And as you can see, whatever the comment just now I have put in over there, demo changes check-in comment, I can see it over here. So whatever the changes you do in your so I have done already mapped this particular project to, I have taken the latest of this. You can go ahead if you do not have Visual Studio, you can get the Visual Studio also downloaded. If you have, you can open the solution over here, like clicking on this particular link, open in Visual Studio. We have one more work tab, as I mentioned earlier. Here you can go ahead and create your backlog. You can update the user stories. So I have few user stories already added to it. I can click on any one of these user stories and I can provide more details to it. For example, I clicked on this particular user story, and I can add some more description to it, and I can provide any acceptance criteria that whatever acceptance criteria I need to put. I can go ahead and change the priority of this particular story or task. I can put some comments into it, and I can finally click on save. So once I do that, those changes will be reflected in my portal. So after that, there is a storyboard. You click on this particular tab, and you can see your all the backlog items as a card, and you can go ahead and make the changes over here also. So this is like the Kanban way of doing things. So with that, this was overall the quick demo of it, and I'd like to pass the control back to Noor for any questions we have. Over to you, Noor. Noor, are you there?
Yeah. Hello, Abhishek.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Abhishek, for the quick session. As I said, we are almost close to end of the session. I have a couple of questions now. One is, can I put my existing projects in Visual Studio Online?
Yes, you can do that. So as being shown in this particular demo also, like these projects are already there. Like you add in a regular TFS, you can go ahead and add the projects here also, existing projects.
Okay, great, thanks. So the other question is it possible to manage Azure AD groups in team services?
Currently, no, I don't think so, because these groups are created and managed in Azure. So team services doesn't store or sync member status for Azure AD groups.
Okay, thanks. So one more question is, what are the development tools with which we can work on Visual Studio team services?
It has support for two major IDs basically. It has support for Visual Studio, and it has support for Eclipse also.
Got it. So the last question before we end is, why do I have to add users to your directory?
Basically what happens is like your team services account uses a directory to control the access, and all users must be in this particular directory to get your accesses. So that is why you need to add them.
Okay, thanks Abhishek. I know we are 1 minute over the time, so I still have few more questions, but what I would like to do is, in the interest of the time, I would like to take them offline, and we would definitely revert back to you with appropriate answers to those questions. So before that, I would like to thank everyone for taking time to join this webinar session, and I hope you found it informative. As you can see on the screen, our next webinar is on how to design apps using Azure SQL database, which is next Wednesday, Feb 24th at 9 a.m. specific time. And we look forward you to joining to the next webinar. Thanks and have a good day. Thanks Abhishek for the wonderful session. Have a good day.
Thanks all, and we look forward to you in our next webinar. Thanks all. Yeah.